Hi and welcome to everybody who's able to watch this. I'm Philippa Eyre, and what I'm going to share today is something that's very interesting because it applies uh, in regard to your personal experience of what might be going on in family situations during the holidays. And it also applies on a very large global level. In fact, it's an interesting example of something that's fractal, but it applies to what's going on with COP24, where we're trying to make decisions that will prevent the demise of human beings on the planet by learning what we can do to curtail further climate change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this incredible exercise that I've developed with you that and I'll provide examples of how it can be applied to both the familial and the global level. So the way that this works is that if you look in the top left corner of the diagram, what you see there is that there's a label um, called initiating emotion or sensation. It's followed in the middle by an action in order to get on the right to the desired emotion or sensation. So what we're going to do is we're going to take an action because we have an emotional sensation that we're not desiring, one that we no longer want to stay with, and we're going to try to get through our action to the desired emotional sensation, the one that we would like to feel. So there's discomfort or a lack of happiness with with the initiating emotional sensation, and there's a relief. There's a sense of I've arrived. There's a preference to be in the desired emotional sensation. And people who know my work will often see me using the word blue emotional sensation instead of initiating emotional sensation, and instead of desired, using the word yellow. So I'm not going to go there today. Um, we'll start off by working with how this would apply. So if, for example, a person is feeling hunger and they no longer want to feel hungry because it's uncomfortable, because they haven't eaten for 5 or 6 hours. They may have had a doctor's appointment. They may just have been busy doing whatever it is that they're doing. And they're hungry enough that they want to do something to make the discomfort of the hunger go away. They want to feel, and here's the interesting place, they want to feel the desired emotion, which is satiated or satisfied. So what can they do? It's fairly easy in the case of hunger is we need to eat something. So we can eat a burger, we can eat a cheese sandwich, we can eat a vegetable. It doesn't really matter what it is that we're eating, but the way to get from feeling hungry to feeling satisfied is by eating something or by somehow trying to make the feeling of hunger go away. We can distract ourselves, we can do other things. So there's a bunch of things that can get put into the middle there. But if we're trying to get to a feeling of satisfaction, then eating a burger is a really good way to go there. Let's go to the second example that I have in here, and that's the example of feeling unsafe. So a friend of mine was telling me yesterday about potential theft in the building where she's living, and that's part of the reason why this example came up for me, and it was causing her to feel unsafe. Um, Her desire was to get out of the emotion of unsafe. She didn't want to stay with feeling unsafe. She wanted to move to a desired emotion to feel safe. And so one of the things that she was able to do was to secure the doors and the windows. We can look at an example of fatigue. So if I am feeling fatigue and I want to feel rested, then I'm going to leave it up to you to fill in what it is, the ideas that come to mind for you of what you could do to go from a state of fatigue, from a sensation of fatigue, to a sensation of feeling rested. If you are feeling lonely, and you no longer want to feel lonely because there's a certain element of discomfort with the loneliness, then one of the things that you can do in order to feel something that's different from lonely, that's more pleasant, that's more desirable, to feel connected, would be to hang out with a friend, to spend time with the spouse, to talk to someone, to do something in the middle there. So there's that action that takes us from the initial emotion, the initiating one, to the desired emotional sensation. So let's go from, well, before we get into the real macro, if you were to apply this to some of the social situations that are coming up over the holiday period where there's a large amount of socializing going on, there'll be hundreds of situations where things come up where you find yourself feeling a particular way that you no longer want to feel. So if, for example, there's someone who is behaving in a lecherous way and you're feeling uncomfortable. So uncomfortable would be the emotion that we would put in the left side. And the thing that we're trying to get to is to feel relieved, to feel safe, to feel away, safe from that person's way of dealing with you in an uncomfortable way. And so moving away might be an option. Speaking out and saying that this is making me uncomfortable might be another way. And so what I hope that you're getting is the idea of what ways to apply this. Now, the other thing is to look at a person who is doing something and to ask the question, well, what on earth would explain why that person is eating all of the cake? And the thing that we can see is that obviously there has to be the same structure for everything, whether it's someone eating a piece of cake or someone drinking or someone singing a song. They're only initiating the action in response to an emotion that they're feeling prior to that, and out of a desire to get to the desired emotion. So the reason for singing a song might be that I'm feeling ignored, or that I'm feeling excited, or that I want to feel excited and I'm not feeling excited. Can you see how amazing this is, that we get to see on both sides of that rationale? And we're not always correct, but we can always take a guess for why a person might move from inaction to action. There's always going to be an initiating emotion or sensation and an attempt to get to the desired emotional sensation. So to skip from the personal up to the global, especially since we have these talks going on right now and attempts to make a difference to what's going on in our environment. If someone is building an oil pipeline, and for example, they're the CEO of a company that's building that oil pipeline, the thing that we know about that individual is that at the individual level, they have some initiating emotional sensation that they're uncomfortable with. And their way of getting to the desired emotional sensation is to build an oil pipeline. So they might be feeling poverty and they would like to feel more wealth. They might be feeling a lack of accomplishment and they're trying to get to a place of accomplishment. They might be feeling self-loathing, and this is a way that they can experience self-love. They might be experiencing this emotion of ambition, and this is the way that they can go from ambition to fulfillment. So one of the things that we get to see in here is that it's extremely non-judgmental to use this system, because all we're trying to find out is what it is that is the motivator for the person. Now, what we've also seen is that the piece in the center doesn't always have to be one specific action. If the person who's building an oil pipeline, because by doing so, that's the way that they feel loved by their mommy and daddy, let's say, because I've worked with people in that kind of situation. What if we were to give them another way of getting that sensational feeling? Do you see how different it is to deal with the individual and the motivation that the individual has in a non-judgmental way, as opposed to blocking oil pipelines? So I'm not putting a preference for one or the other, but what I'm saying is that once we personalize it and we break it apart into this way, we get to look at what might be going on for the person, what it is that the desired emotion or sensation is, because if they can get that desired emotional sensation in a way that's healthier, then they don't necessarily have to do something that might be considered unhealthy. If I'm concerned about my child's future, for example, and there are many reasons with what's going on in the environment to be concerned. And I remember it was over 10 years ago when I was at my daughter's after school care. And I was sitting on the couch waiting for her to finish playing a game of cards with the other 5-year-olds. And there was no interrupting the card game once they got going. But there were a couple of 5-year-olds playing nearby to me, and I was listening to the conversation that we're having, and they were saying, in frank conversation with one another, about what it feels like to be the last generation of children on this planet. So at 5 years old, these children were carrying an awareness that they are the last generation. Now, I can't imagine what it must be like to be a child who grows up with that kind of consciousness or awareness. To me, it sounds incredibly painful and challenging. As a parent who's concerned about my child's future, I would like to get to the place where I can relax and feel relaxed about my child's future. And so the question in the middle is not one that I can answer briefly, or you know what, one of the things that I'm doing is having this conversation with you right now. So that's one of the pieces that I'm adding. How do I motivate myself, or how do I go about getting to a place that I'm relaxed about my child's future? And so tonight's example is by speaking to you. I'm going to cut that over here, and thank you to those people who joined. Really fantastic to have you. And I will probably be back in the next day or so with little bits of additional wisdom to share with you, because at its core, the challenges that we face, no matter what they are, whether they're on the micro or they're at the macro, have to do with how we relate to ourselves and to other people, and to inner processes that are going on that motivate us to do the things that we do in the specific way that we do them. And once we're able to non-judgmentally look at why we're doing the things that we do, we have this incredible power to begin to make gentle adjustments from unhealthy behavior to a much more healthy behavior. So I'm wishing everyone a wonderful evening, and thanks for giving me some of your time.